Now, although I must use your language of English words and the simplicity of the explanation that comes with it, I ask you before I even reveal it, I ask you to move into a place of knowing that what I'm going to explain to you has never occurred on this planet before. And even when there has been, for individuals who have achieved the resurrection of those blessed initiates that journeyed successfully to ancient schools of inner wisdom, even in former times or former golden ages, where there have been individual resurrections and service and ascension, it always has the threefold activity of the three plumes of God been leaned upon so that the resurrection would come forth in each of the activity, whether that was the divine masculine, the divine feminine, or the substance of the elemental body. The resurrection ultimately, and the forces of resurrection, sought to evenly and in a balanced way draw forth the resurrection of those three great activities of life. That which represents the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and that which represents physical substance that begins with your physical body. And all times past, whether in former golden ages where there have been that few who achieved the destiny of those ages, or whether it be initiates that successfully made their way to the schools of inner wisdom, this has always been the application of resurrection. That resurrection for an individual would unfold in accordance to the divine balanced activity of the three plumes of the Godhead that are revealed to you as the unfed flame matures. Do you understand? And so it is I announce to you today what has not occurred before, what is an authority, a dispensation of the great central sun, and one that I knew I could more seamlessly initiate into your lives as your Ascended Master-elect for this year, that for the first time in the millions of years of the people being on the earth, and due to the less than victorious, less than successful collective resurrection of the people of earth, it has been decreed that moving forth, and the final decree for this will be given at the resurrection conclave, that the resurrection of the divine feminine side of life will now supersede the resurrection of the mental activity and the physical side of life. The resurrection of the divine feminine, let us say, said in a different way, will lead the way. And I ask you just to breathe into that as we now enter into some understanding. And welcome the divine feminine of your own being. And it makes no difference, dear hearts. You are not completely clear. You still have some of the old veils of personality that sometimes confuses when we speak of the divine masculine, when we speak of the divine feminine. There is still a little bit of confusion or association in connecting that to sexuality or connecting that to the kind of physical body that you have chosen to be born into. And I assure you that the divine feminine, this is not what I am speaking of. I am not speaking of the sexuality of a person. I am not speaking of the body type of a person. Do you understand my words? Although both of those activities will be highly influenced by the growth of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Do you understand? And so, let us begin with the great understanding that each of you, this begins as the great spiritual polarity of life. Light, the divine masculine, love, the divine feminine. Yes, and to understand the perfect balanced activity that each of you have the divine masculine and each of you have the divine feminine. Next, it would be wise for you to remember, to remember that the divine masculine and divine feminine, as it seeks to express itself in the outer world, has been tragically compromised by the consciousness of lack, limitation, and the book of knowledge of good and evil that has imposed duality upon the expression of divine masculine and divine feminine. And because the will of the people has been so to allow this to happen, that which is the divine masculine is not necessarily so divine, and that which is the divine feminine is not so necessarily divine, as it has expressed in the outer world. Yet, dear heart, through the unfed flame in your heart, and where that unfed flame in your heart originates from, it originates from, in the oldest metaphysical term we could use, the Adam-Cadmon cell, which is the secret chamber of the heart, that the spirit of the I Am presence anchors into and begins to animate the outer self when one is born into this world. And in the Adam-Cadmon cell, that is a perfect activity of the divine feminine, the divine masculine. And so we say to you, dear hearts, when you hear us use phrases, that within you there is a place that has never been touched. It's never been compromised. It's never changed by the outer world consciousness. It is the inner jewel beauty of your being. It is the sacred jewel of your heart. It is the super electron, the Adam-Cadmon cell, out of which life anchors in the physical body, the life of your I Am presence, and then animates the physical body through the central nerve system, and then expresses the consciousness of the I Am that you are through the mental and the feeling side of life. All of you for thousands of years have been hearing the clarion call that is speaking in your hearts to begin your great journey out of the wilderness of the seeming out of worlds of consciousness. All of you in the journeys of several thousand years have been journeying back to the center of your being. As you come back to this nucleus, this mighty foci, the center of your being, and as you peel off through the letting go process, through the activities of the sacred fire, as you peel off the layers of the human consciousness, do you begin to glimpse the divine consciousness in prayer, in meditation, in times of spiritual and joyful upliftment. You begin to glimpse you begin to experience the divine masculine that can come to you as such a clear mind and in a new ability to use your mind, the activity of the Christ mind, the divine masculine, in such ways that are amazing to yourself, that in your resurrection it feels like a power of light has been exposed into the mind that gives you a feeling that suddenly everything in your mind has been reorganized. And it is a lovely feeling when you, and notice my words, it is a lovely feeling when you sense that everything in your mind has been reorganized. Now that is an activity of light when enough of the love of the divine feminine through the love flame in the heart has begun to express. In golden ages past, there were many resurrections and ascensions. And many of those who resurrected and gained their freedom in the ascension are today your ascended family. However, the great victory of raising the collective consciousness of the people, that everyone might be raised out of a consciousness of a limitation, that has not succeeded. If it had succeeded, life in this world would not be what it is. Now let us understand, it did not ultimately, fundamentally, that success was not there because the divine feminine side of life did not have the opportunity to fulfill and become one with the divine masculine as a tremendous force of resurrection. And you might say, well, why didn't the masters bring it in? The story has never changed. What we can do for you is dependent upon your own state of consciousness. And you must understand, precious hearts, it's not just the last 70,000 years. Although you have had allotted time periods where divine exception, such as the time of the great queens of the Nile, a 270,000 year period where evolved life streams came into the feminine embodiment with a very higher purpose of achievement. And many of those things too for this seventh golden age, even though it's far beyond what is this present 60,000 years that have prepared for this seventh golden age. Yet it is to understand that since the fall from grace, all that opposes the light has successfully removed from the consciousness of the people any idea of a feminine principle, a feminine presence that stands equal to the masculine principle. Do you understand? And that has made its way through the consciousness, and one of the ways of ensuring that that would hold, that would stay in place, is revealed to you if you have ears to hear and eyes to see and a heart to understand. In the story of Adam and Eve, it is here where you can today, in your awakening, you can understand what is it? What is it that age after age after age, even in former golden ages, that your own ascended family could not reveal the presence of the divine feminine, the mother aspect of life, such as happening now? And that is that the divine feminine has been so repressed in expression of one's divine individuality by using that great activity of blame and casting as a man-made invention of sin entered into the consciousness of people. That man-made invention of sin, its first application is against the feminine. And the modern day story, yet so much of it was hidden, but the purpose of that story, and not much truth is left in it today because it's so buried, was that the first sin was cast by Eve. You understand? So these things go back so far in time, and as we've sought to carefully share with you, the one activity that has not allowed your own ascended and angelic host to bring forth greater intervention in the past is that if the people of earth have used their will, even inadvertently, even during the process, they didn't realize that their will was being used to silence, to shut down some aspect of their being, even if it was being done without their being aware of it. And that's what happened. Still, it's in the will of the people, and that must be respected until a time. And so in all former golden ages, the activity of resurrection, this occurred only for individuals or very small groups. And the resurrection of the presence that was overseeing individuals' resurrection, great masters assisting, always worked with the balanced activity of the three plumes of the unfed flame, yet with not much understanding of the feminine principle within. So now, dear hearts, you are awake. Now, if I use these words, divine feminine, each of you ought to have a sufficient awareness of what this is. And the awareness that the divine feminine expresses through the heart side of life, the love side of life, the feeling side of life, and ultimately, the greatest expression of the divine feminine is through the soul. And the divine masculine expresses through the mind of an individual, and ultimately the highest activity of the divine masculine expresses through an individual where there is transformation in the mind, brain, feeling side activity, where the higher mind, the Christ mind, the dazzling, fathomless mind of God, the divine masculine begins its expression. Now, due to my authority of who I am and as your ascended master-elect, we are going to do something that has never been accomplished before. It's never been tried before. Yet we knew, because this is part of the divine plan. Now you know, dear hearts, today, you know that the great Kumara family of Venus has made a great contribution in placing the people of Earth and the planet Earth under their guardian protection. And you also know that the goddess of Venus sent her son, and with Sanat Kumara, you and your higher mental bodies, tens of thousands of years ago, designed this divine plan for this seventh golden age. And it was the great goddess of Venus who conceived of this idea and planted it with her son and all of you. So all I am doing this morning really is refreshing your memory of what you have not remembered, that was part of the divine plan, written into the divine plan. When you have heard us speak that this seventh golden age must have guarantees. It must have those things in place that guarantees large numbers of the people of earth gain their freedom and their resurrection, remain on the earth as resurrected Christ beings, go forth in service until the resurrection of the entire people of earth and the planet and all her kingdoms are resurrected. And then all of you collectively, that does not mean that some of you won't do this before, will enter into the great ascension of the ages of this planet at the end of this 10,000 year period. So, it is our great daughter, the great Empress of Venus, who conceived the idea. So here you might appreciate that even my election as your Ascended Master-elect was something conceived tens of thousands of years ago, when the divine plan for the seventh golden age was written up. Do you understand? So that all things would be in place. Therefore, it is for each of you now to welcome first now the resurrection of the divine feminine of your being, and to allow and to welcome and to know that by divine authority and intervention of the great central sun, and I, Akasha, as your Ascended Master-elect, the final decree today is informational day. Yet as you receive this information, I welcome you to, through that which is your desire and decision and spoken word, to begin to decree that the resurrection of your divine feminine shall lead the way, shall supersede the resurrection of the mental and physical side of life. And the final decree for this will be given at the Resurrection Conclave. And with this, dear heart, I hope that through your contemplation of all that I have taught you, of all that you have become aware, of the Mother's presence, of the activities of divine love, where that which is love and will and grace in a divine activity can draw to you the greater love that seeks to be a source of nurturing and nourishment to everything that you are choosing in your life, and that the final activity, see, this is the piece that's important, dear heart, that the final activity of divine love, that is the divine feminine side of life, that it shall now lead the way, it shall supersede, because you have the great understanding today that one of the finishing principles of the divine feminine is to bring forth everything into a state of fulfillment. Fulfillment. Do you understand? So as you understand, you are a being of the sacred fire. And the sacred fire produces the natural spiritual polarity of life. Light and love. Light, the divine masculine. Love, the divine feminine. And as you understand that this is the spiritual hierarchy of life. Now, when that hierarchy comes down to the level of consciousness, And each of you are breaching, you are setting aside with the efforts that you're making and divine intervention and preparing. As I have said recently, it is a magnificent accomplishment. And so soon will each of you experience the greater joy and the greater health and the greater lightness and the greater love of having successfully removed the animal consciousness from the cells of your body. And now what is before you, dear hearts? In these 3 years, these exceptional years of resurrection, is the removal of the human consciousness as it has perceived and registered and anchored upon mind, body, and feelings, a belief in duality through the book of knowledge of good and evil. So through this awareness that you have, that you are resurrecting 3 great activities. You are freeing your mind from having been crucified by the book of knowledge of good and evil. You are freeing your feeling side of life from the darkness that has been imposed upon the qualities of the feeling side of life. And ultimately, you are freeing the instrument. You are freeing the physical garment in ways that duality has imposed itself upon the substance and cells of the body. So you have an understanding today that the threefold activity of your resurrection is the resurrection of your mind into your Christ mind, the resurrection of your feelings into the full expression of all the qualities of divine love, fully expressing in your feeling, your heart, and finally, the resurrection of your physical body up and out of the chaos of duality that has wreaked havoc upon the physical body. So said simply and shortly, for clarity unto thine own self, my resurrection includes the resurrection of my mental body, my feeling body, and my physical body. This I am aware of. Yes? And now, through what is being revealed today, and shall the final decree for it. I am already been decreeing, but the final decree, and by final decree, once that final decree is given at conclave, nothing can reverse this. Nothing can stand in the way of it. And I say to you, dear hearts, sometimes before a great activity comes into your awareness, and it'll come into your awareness when the timing is perfect, yet the influence of that activity, if it is mighty, if it is life-changing, if the bells of freedom will ring within your heart, long before that activity, where you become aware of it and you begin to work with it, does the influence, very sublime influence of that activity already unfolding. And dear hearts, it's right before you. In every single former human potential movement, in every former golden age, large or small. Please hear this and allow it to register. those in masculine garments led the way. And if you were to enter into classes in the old day and previous ages, you would see, if there were 100 students in the room, you would see perhaps 85 in the masculine embodiment and maybe 15 in the feminine embodiment. Did I say that right? Yes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Look around. Has it reversed? Yes. Absolutely. So, and now, of course, because the awakening is working, more and more numbers, especially when we get you into a very, very large room with many of you, such as conclave. This is where you can see that there are many in the masculine embodiment that are joining you ladies. And so it is, this was the divine plan. This time, when that time would arrive, and the time has arrived, the resurrection of the divine feminine would lead the way, would supersede, would go out in front. And I want you to be able to grasp this in whatever way you can. All right? That this would occur. And yet this is so big that the very quiet influences of what eventually would come are those influences which have brought about an awakening in these last 82 years since the advent of Saint Germain, in which the numbers awakening and all spiritual groups and spiritual movements have been 85% in the feminine embodiment. So here you see the quiet, behind the scenes, very sublime influence. The human mind will give you reasons as to why more women seem to be interested in the spiritual nature, but none of that is important, because I have revealed to you today the truth. And so it is all of you, blessed hearts, who are strongly aligned with the divine feminine and have chosen to step into what you would call a feminine garment, because this would most serve you. And I know that his son has got some plans to really complete wrenching away from your consciousness ideas of sexuality and ideas that just because you're in a masculine body that you may be a god. What if you're a goddess in a masculine body? You may be. My dear hearts, today you are illumined. And whether you are a goddess or a god, I am presence. You will choose a perfectly balanced number of embodiments where you will wear the feminine garment, where you will wear the physical garment, masculine garment. And the more you come to your great awakening, the garment that you will wear, that you will take on, has 99.9% to do with your great freedom and your awakening. Nothing to do with sexuality or whether you are a girl baby or a boy baby. Those things are aside. And if you can just leave them aside, I will say to you, if you will allow the resurrection of the divine feminine, because we can decree, yet the law has not changed. You have to say yes. You have to use your will. This is why we take the time to explain these things as much as we are allowed to explain them, so that you are not being blindly led. We are giving you the information, and we are trusting that we are giving you enough information, and you have the contrast. We show you what went wrong before. We show you what did not succeed before. And we reveal to you the divine plan that you yourselves, albeit with the help of the Kamara family, you created this divine plan. You said yes to it, yes? So let us take a deep breath. More will come. Very seldom have a son and I spoken to something only once. Very seldom. You know we're going to come back to it and add more to it. So may we take a deep breath. And with all of my heart and my soul and my mind, and may my own body elemental within my heart hear this good news. And may even my soul, I understand my soul is the highest and most sacred attainment of the divine feminine. And I say to all the spiritual polarity of my being and to the substance of my physical body, I say yes to this divine plan. That the divine feminine of my being shall lead the way of my resurrection now. That the divine feminine of my being, in terms of my resurrection, shall supersede the resurrection of the masculine and the physical substance. In the name, love, wisdom, and authority of the I am that I am, by the authority granted from the great central sun, and by the authority of Akasha, who has become our ascended master elect, I accept this divine plan, this divine intervention, and I say yes to it. And I am. By all God's love, I know I am. The resurrection of the divine feminine within me and around me, that shall now lead the way of the resurrection of my being and my world. And I welcome her resurrection. Whether I am in a masculine or feminine embodiment makes no difference. We are all I am. I am is life. Life is light, the divine masculine. Love, the divine feminine. And through the plumes of the unfed flame within me, I embrace the divine feminine aspect of my being, the power of love, to lead the way of my resurrection, knowing that hidden deep within the heart of love, the secret chambers of the divine feminine, is the greatest love of all, the greatest power of the universe, fulfillment. And may the fulfillment of my resurrection, the fulfillment of my earthly embodiment of resurrection, now be achieved victoriously, as I welcome the divine feminine of my being to lead the way of my resurrection. In the name of the I am that I am, in the name of my higher mental body, in the name of my beloved I Am Presence, in the name of my majestic soul presence, I decree it so. I trust, dear hearts, that this news bids a good, joyous feeling within you. I trust by what you have seen, what you have experienced, and with this information, that it may begin the close, that it may begin to complete. What is the necessity of everyone who takes this path? The forgiveness against the masculine, the forgiveness against the mind of God, and forgiveness towards one's own feminine that has often been beaten up in this world. Each of you, as you look into your lives, the Son has talked to you about core perception. First, core perception against God the Father, and in more recent years, core perception against God the Mother. It is a tragic event in the lives of the people where those in the past have chosen to enter into feminine embodiment and were not even consciously aware of the feminine aspect of their being, and not even aware that that feminine aspect of their being was being overridden by the masculine that might express in oneself, or the masculine that might express in another, that has sought in lifetimes past and in a degree in this lifetime to override any of the feminine side of life that has sought in your own lives to come back into balance. Marriages have broken up. Women who have been beaten and taken such a toll and are so blinded by the experience continue to take such suffering until finally a wake-up call is upon them and they find their courage and they leave the one who assaults them. You've been on many journeys, dear heart. You've all been in the masculine body. You've all been in the feminine body. And this can be a very sensitive, and this can be a very vulnerable, or what a son might say, touchy-feely side. There comes to a place where we must complete forgiveness. So that it is not even necessary for us to hold that conversation, well, I am forgiving, and we must forgive. The Christ, as the Christ comes forth in each of you, the Christ sees no blemish. It is the outer self that must forgive. Whether you are wearing a feminine or masculine garment, the human race the people of earth equally have engaged in the diminishing of the feminine side of life. And therefore, ultimately, let us complete this journey. Let us complete the journey of forgiveness. A son had an opportunity yesterday to speak to one of our students. She will remain unnamed. Yet this student has very, very quietly, like each of you are quietly providing a service to the larger student body. And accept that a son walked this blessed life stream through everything that occurred in her life. Does she now see how all the players in her life and what ultimately led her to find her courage to no longer be abused and walk away from a marriage? That all of this was part of a greater picture in which that abuse, as it began, allowed her to realize that there was a sacred and feminine aspect to her being that she had not even acknowledged before. Do you hear what I'm saying? That one may not know, one may be in a masculine body and may not even know the sacredness of the divine masculine. One may be in a feminine body and may not know the sacredness of the divine feminine. And yet sometimes we will position ourselves, especially if the journey is great before us. We will position ourselves to complete what is possible. How can you take a journey of the resurrection of the divine feminine if you have forgotten that an aspect of your being is divinely feminine? If you have forgotten that that even exists? And many of you precious hearts, you precious women, what you had to do, if you didn't do it in this embodiment, you did it in your previous embodiment. You awakened to your sacred divine feminine. And then had to come back into this world. And only through some abuse, remember that you had that divine feminine. And do you know what a lot of you did, dear hearts, precious daughters? You, as you had come in touch with that sacred and divine feminine, when you realized that abuse was still in this world, you took her into your heart. And you protected her. And then you came back on and took on a very thick, tough skin. Imagine a child, a little girl. And a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, or maybe even 3 years old, is hearing her mother and father fight and scream at each other. And imagine this little 3, 4, 5-year-old girl. She's in her little bedroom, and she picks up her doll. And she takes her doll, and she places her doll in a little crib. And she nurtures, and she puts a blanket around her little doll as she's hearing her parents scream at each other. And she takes that little doll of hers and nurtures and holds it. This is but an outer activity of that child, even being so young, knowing that what she's really doing is protecting that vulnerable inner innocence of the divine feminine, and protecting and putting arms around her, taking her into her inner cave where she will not be touched, exposed. I am strong enough. I can take my bruises, have a tough and thick skin. All of you, including those of you in masculine embodiment, have had to do this too. The divine masculine is as innocent as the divine feminine. But do put the word divine in front of that word. So I just wish you to know, dear hearts, you're on a very, very long journey. Very long journey. And the resurrection of your divine feminine to supersede, to lead the way now. I wish you to know, and maybe I'm causing you to think of it in a different way, that all of you have done what you needed to do by allowing yourself to go through what you have gone through. Each of you have hidden the divine feminine of your being. You have taken her into your inner cave, your inner chamber within your heart, and you have kept her safe. While out in the outer world, you took on a thick skin, took your hits, took your bruises, and by doing so, I can say to you that the truth of your divine feminine, or let me back up, the truth of your inner child, if you will associate your inner child as your divine feminine, if you will put that association together, she's in a wonderful place. She hasn't taken the hits that happen from the compromised masculine in the outer world. Whether that compromise is in the masculine of your own mind or expressing through another, you actually have looked after her more than you may be aware. So it is time. It is time for all of you to allow the marriage of your divine feminine into the body elemental of your physical body. To let her come out into the elemental activity. Passivism, is that right? Passivism has entered your world. And it's very interesting unto me, where you may have leading pacifists, such as those as Mother Teresa. Yet, the advent of modern day passivism has come more through the masculine form. And this too, such as the likes of Gandhi and others. And this is to reveal to you that the light of the Christ, the real divine masculine, is not aggressive. The divine masculine, the Christ, is a pacifist. and non-aggressive. Today, you are the most blessed ones to know that the life of Mahatma Gandhi serves as the great God of unity, and that Mother Teresa and the life stream who came into your world and was overshadowed with so much publicity. You know too that Diana, the Princess of Wales, I shared with you before, that she has been taken into her ascension. And so, blessed hearts, this has been quite the journey. But even there are small influences of this journey that you can see in the outer world. Even where people are not awakening, yet the heart within women is growing. Women are starting to lead the way. Today you have women who own their own businesses. Today you have some women who are chief executive officers of companies. So you can see the effects of this. Yet I wish you to know, I, Akasha, wish you to know, you have participated in the primary cause, not the effects. So as you welcome, dear heart, this is going to be more indicative to those of you who are using a feminine garment. That is, you welcome the resurrection of the divine feminine to supersede, to lead the way. That you actually take some time. And it may not feel like it, but I ask you to trust me. There is a place within every person that is so vulnerable. And it's not the vulnerability to what is offensive. It's not a vulnerability to that which can be frightful. There is a place in the wellspring of every heart. It is the essence of vulnerability, where truly you can lay down your guard, where there is nothing that can touch you, and you can allow yourself to be vulnerable to the inner innocence of your own divine masculine, own divine feminine. You are 99.9% there, where a kind of vulnerability brings about an expression, sudden moments where tears flow. It is the most beautiful kind of vulnerability. It is the center of innocence itself. And when you come to that place, it is a beautiful place. Yet for this, it will require all of you, especially more those of you who are in a feminine embodiment, to take your stand that you have come into the awareness of what is divinely masculine, what is divinely feminine centuries ago. Why do you think I called you to Delphi? You have come into this awareness. And no matter what has happened in the outer world, I ask you to stand with I, Akasha. And know this truth, that through the journey in the outer world, you may have gone through phases where you've been battered and bruised and beaten upon or stamped upon. You may not have been physically touched, but you were ridiculed, and on and on. But try to find a way of fathoming this, and I think I'm going to use the word outer self. You have so guarded the divine feminine side of you. You've taken her and you put her in a cave in your heart, like a little girl who hears her parents fighting and goes and picks up her doll and puts the doll in a crib and protects her, not knowing that that is somehow meaningful, that she's protecting that vulnerable inner divine feminine within her heart. And you have done this. Your divine feminine, she is ready to be liberated. And I'm not speaking of the way of any women's liberation in the world. No, I am speaking of the power of love that is yours to fulfill this great path of resurrection, and to assist the men in this path of resurrection to do the same. So rise and come unto me in these days before resurrection, and invite Ayakasha to come into your heart. You tucked her very deeply. Invite me to come into your heart and walk you into the innermost chamber of your heart, where you tucked your divine feminine, so that she would not be touched by the harshness of the outer world's experiences and activities. And invite me to come with you and journey into the innermost chamber of your heart. Let's go get her. And let's bring her forth. Let's bring her forth through your earthly embodiment. And you will find the last of the harsh activities that the outer feminine took on will just melt away, because she is important in being part of fulfilling the resurrection of your divine feminine. Do you understand all that I have spoken to you this day? Each of you will have gone through your own unique experiences. For some of you, when you were very young. For others of you, when you were adolescent. For others of you, in your 20s and 30s, in marriage and so forth. Yet each of you have had those experiences that have readied you to allow this part of the divine plan to move forward. I Akasha decree, in the name of the I Am Presence that each of you are, that the divine feminine of your being come forth and lead the way of your resurrection. God bless you, dear hearts. Shananda is ready to greet you. And I thank you. God bless you.